Hey guys, we're back in the shed again doing a couple of last minute mods of the 200 series. We're heading to Fraser Island next week and there's a couple of important things that have just finally rocked up. So we're going to go ahead and throw those in today. First thing is a UHF. You can't go anywhere without one of those. Could save your life. We'll throw one of those on. I've got a XRS 370. And I've got this little Kaon mount, which is a mirror mount bracket, so we'll go ahead and we'll go throw those on. But the second thing I've got is an onboard air compressor. Now we're doing Fraser Island, we're going to be airing down a bunch of times. So I've got a pump up kit, digital air compressor, a little tank there to help us out. But I've also got a TLR mounting bracket. So this is 200 series specific, and it goes in the rear quarter. So we're going to go ahead and install those today. So stay tuned. Now for this trip, we've got the 200 series pretty much stripped, so we've got all the seats out, the second row and the third row seats. This does have a little bit of wiring in it already. We've got an outlet here that runs from a dual 110 amp lithium setup under the bonnet, solar input here, and in this little panel here I've already got a battery guard and an MPPT solar charger or solar charge controller. So I'm gonna have to relocate this today because this is where the TLR bracket mounts the air compressor. So this was already done when we bought the car, and once our drawers rock up and we install them, I'm going to be relocating most of this stuff to a little electrical enclosure behind the fridge with another battery and whatnot. So I'm just going to move these today and get the compressor in there and show you guys the install. So I'm going to rip the seatbelt mount out and start pulling all of these plastic trims off to gain access to everything. Some of these plastic trims, these need to come off. Pull that off all the way around. Hopefully this panel comes off easy enough. Yep, like so. We can check out what mess is in behind here. So this is the original wiring in behind here. Oh, that wiring's come off that USB outlet, but there's a little bit going on in here, so I'm gonna have to remove all of this and then unscrew this plastic housing because the compressor sits basically where that space, that cavity is taken up. So I'm gonna have to move all of that and just relocate it for the time being till we get back from Fraser, get the drawer system in, and then we can redo it all properly. So I don't know how I'm gonna tackle this. So you've got to remove the kick panel of the door, which has just got a little cover plate and then a 10mm bolt in there. Do that there. So remove that kick plate, that comes off, and then you should be able to pop all of these clips, which are just little press clips all the way up and around. Pop those and get the panel off under your seat belt at the front. And now I've got a bunch of wiring in here that I've got to disconnect. So I just disconnected the circuit breaker, and I've got a couple of little wires here I need to disconnect and remove that run up to the tailgate light and things like that. That's a basic little setup in there. Okay, so this is what it looks like with the panel removed. So you can see all those clip holes around the perimeter there that you've got to pop the trim off. And this is the cavity where the old electrical setup was, or that little pod box thing, storage container. That's where the compressor mount is going to go, and the little tank sits just above the fuel filler there to the side. So next step is removing this big plastic unit off the back, which has just got a bunch of screws all the way around, and it should come off. Then I can get the wiring components out and start installing the compressor. Here's the inside of the panel with that section removed. There's a bunch of screws, a couple of them put back in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 screws, and that section gets removed. So this is the little TLR kit, TLR products kit mount for the little 4 litre ARB aluminium air tank, and then this is the compressor mount. I believe it sits like that in the panel. It's got a little rocker switch mount and the outlet for your air hose. Comes with some pretty basic instructions here, and that's what it will look like installed. So the instructions say to remove this jack and bracket and the wiring. So we'll unclip the wiring at the top here, pull these couple of clips off, just hang that out of the way for now. I'm going to go ahead and try and tidy some of this wiring up and get that out of the way so we can get in there. And one thing else I've noticed is the amount of dust and stuff coming in there's a wiring cable that comes up through this rubber grommet on the floor, and it's pretty much just been chopped. And then you can, I don't know if you can see that, you can see down the floor. So I'm going to seal all that up too, just to stop some dust getting into the back here. So now I've got this wiring out of the way. That's the trailer plug and some other bits and pieces that were in there. You can see the jack bolts. There's two 10mm on the back side here and one down the bottom. So I'm going to remove that and then start mounting the compressor to the plate, which will pick up, I'm assuming, these couple of bolt points where this factory loom is pointed or tied to. Down here maybe. I'll get the bracket, I'll sit it in here, and then we'll work out putting the compressor on it. So this is the compressor bracket, and it's got a couple of holes here that line up with the jack holes. So they're the mounting points for that. There's a couple up the top here, which will be those points that we removed the factory loom from there. And then this little threaded insert here. So that'll end up sitting kind of in there like that. A couple of bolts in there, a couple of bolts up the top. But they give you what they call a tag bolt, which is basically a bolt welded to a stick. And you got to poke that kind of up and through that hole from the backside so that you can hold that bolt there when you put the plate on, to be able to get the nut on the outside without that bolt falling back down. So it's basically just a bolt on a stick that you got to hold for that top rear one. But first things first, I'm going to get the compressor mounted to this plate and then get it up in here. Okay, so these little suckers are not light. It's going to make this challenging to hold the bracket in place when I'm bolting it in. So I'm going to get the filters mounted. I'm going to get the outlet mounted. The wiring's probably all right where it is. Then I get this thing bolted onto the plate. Try and lift it up in there. See if I can do this by myself. Should be fun. So compressor's in, filters are on, it's all bolted down. I've chucked a 90-degree fitting in the front of the compressor, and I've also whacked the ARB tank together. Having a bit of a look at it, brackets on the tank got to go like that, and it sits on that TLR plate on the mounting brackets like that. But I'm just trying to have a quick suss of this airline fitting and hose. So I reckon if I come out at the back like that, that'll be a neat little fit into that compressor to tank, and then I'll run a longer one off the top up and out, because I'm actually going to run the outlet for the air compressor for the fittings and whatnot, and the hose in the front of the drawers once I put them in. So it's usually mounted here. So I guess if you're mounting the switch and that outlet on the front of that plate, you might want to run a little differently, but something to think about before you go ahead and put it in. So I've got the compressor here mounted up to the plate. It is a little bit heavy, so what I'm going to try and do is get it up in there and get one bolt down in the bottom corner first, and then that way hopefully it just helps me support it while I try and get that tag bolt up into the back corner. Hold there. Get this bolt in. That will help stabilize it. All right. Might get one more bolt in. Hold your tongue in the right spot. Get the nut on the end of it. Okay, now the tag bolt. I'm gonna get this up into that back corner. I might go in from the side. I'll probably make this a little bit easier. So I got that tag bolt up in the corner, and I found the easiest way to do it was bend the tag into almost an S shape and put it in from the side. Now it's just getting the nut on, getting everything lined up. Alrighty, that's a good start. The bolts down here, reuse the original ones for the jack mount. That makes sense. Okay, so that's those three. Get these tightened up, get that locked up in there. Put the jack back in. So that's it, it's all in. I've just put an extra bolt down in here that I'll replace when I put the jack mount back in, but I figured while I got it here, I may as well run all the wiring and everything before I put that in. So I reckon to get to this wiring and make it a little bit easier, I might remove this third row seat handle. I'll get the tank mount in here next to it, get it all plumbed up, and we should be good to go. So this is the tank and the mount. I've got the fittings at the back on this one, hoping that it's going to work. I'm going to guess it picks up the top two holes, the one where that bolt is, and that threaded insert down there. So looking at that, I reckon that's going to work pretty well. I'll just double check that that's going to reach, because it's a little bit further away than I first thought. So I've added a 90-degree elbow to the bottom of that fitting just to help this hose run out into the compressor a little bit easier, and that's almost a perfect length. That's a little short one, I think it's 300 mil from ARB, so that's pretty easy to do that. And I might then throw another 90 on the top here to run the longer one out to the back of the drawers. Everything's in and it's all tight, as you can see there. Got it plumbed up. Use a 90 on the bottom of that side to run to the compressor, and a 90 at the top there as well. I've got a 1 meter length hose off that, and then it runs down the back of the compressor behind in that inner guard, and then that's just going to come out to the rear drawer outlet. Jack's back in, that's all sorted, bolts up nicely in there. I'm just going to tidy up this wiring now and then add in the compressor wiring. We're good. So with the wiring here, I've just plugged in the harnesses that come with the compressor, and I've just run them up and along the top, cable tied to the cable for that seat release. Main power, I've just fed up and over the top of the compressor. I'll run that with the standard loom there. Once I finish putting my original wiring components back in, I'll connect those. I have mounted the outlet and the switch to this bracket so that when you open the little cover, I guess, on the plastics, you can get to them. So that'll be nice and easy. And I've just run that long lead in a big loop back up to here. That way, relatively easy when I put the drawers in to just disconnect these two and then feed them down to the bottom. So the only things left is illumination and a power wire here, which I'm hoping to pick up from this rear tail light, and these plugs. And then I'll put my electrical components back in and test it out. That's it, all finished up. I've run all the wiring. Main harness just runs along the top of the tank there. It's all plumbed up. I just have to finish relocating these other little components down into this area, and then I can hook up the main power. But that's it, neat and tidy. So there you go, it's all back together. Compressor's hidden in there nicely. Just pull that panel out, gives you access to the hose inlet or outlet and the switch and that. So all tucks away neat as, and looks factory. Next up, we've got the UHF install. So got the XRS kit here, which I'll bust open, work out where I'm going to put all this. Got a little Kaon side mirror mount, so I'll whip that out. That's going to go up the front here and mount just here on the front right hand side, left hand side of the car, passenger side there. So this is what's in the Kaon mount box. So obviously the mount itself, some fixings, hardware, some spacers, and a little nutsert tool that they provide just to install the nutserts into the upper part of the door. So I'll throw this bracket on first, and then we'll work out where I'm going to run the aerial cable. Then I'll probably pull the dash apart and work out where I'm actually going to mount this unit and the handpiece. All right, first things first, I've got to take this little trim piece here off. So I'll just try and pry that with a screwdriver. It looks like there's a mount at the top and a mount at the bottom there. So we've got to get this one off because that's exactly where our little aerial mount is going to go. So there you go, just pop that off with a screwdriver. You can see the larger fixing at the bottom there. That's the harder one of the two to get off. So I'm going to pop this little rubber section out here, drill that out, and that is going to be where you install the nutsert so that your new aerial mount picks up that existing bolt hole and the new one we're about to put in. Okay, so I've drilled my hole here. I'm just going to wax some paint on that and let it dry. And then I'll be installing this, which is a little nutsert tool that they have supplied with it. And a little bit hard to see there, but it's essentially a lock nut with some washers, and there's like a bearing race on the inside to help it turn. Pretty much put that into the hole, hold this with a 14mm spanner, and then do up the cap head bolt here. That'll crush up your nutsert and secure it in the hole you just drilled. All right, the nutsert has been installed and I've removed this bolt. So now I'm going to chuck the bracket on with a couple of spaces on the end here. That should just sit on there neatly. So that's pretty much the idea of it. Go ahead and tighten those up and then start on mounting the actual UHF. Okay, so that's it. That's the mount all set up. We've got the aerial on. Just a little shorty whip, 2.1 dBi. Just run the cable kind of up and over the top of the guard there. I'll show you. Just kind of runs up and then above this rubber trim here. I've basically pulled the trim, or the seal, I guess, from the outer mudguard to the body. Pulled that trim out and then just fed, not sure if you're gonna be able to see it, but fed the cable down and then in through this door grommet. And then that just comes out through the other side. So super simple, super neat. You can barely tell anything's there. And that way the cable won't get damaged when you close the door, as it runs kind of up and over it, not in the gap. All right, so I started pulling the dash part as well to work out where I'm going to mount the actual unit itself. So I don't know whether I'm going to go up underneath the glove box or on top of the console, but I'm going to try and get this center console here out and somehow mount this in under there. I have removed the side trim panels here, which are quite easy to do. And what I've done is tried to get this section here out, because I reckon there's going to be enough room underneath this center section of the console to mount the unit. So taking everything apart and just kind of working it out as I go. There's a couple of screws here after you pop the little container, little fold downy bit. After you pop that out of the way, the lower section, yeah, we've got to get these out, which are some weird little clippy things here. Push down and then up, pop the side bit off, and it looks like this side panel comes off and lets the top lift up, and then hopefully we've got enough room to mount it. Turns out I was wrong on this side. When we lift this center console section up, there's just all aircon pipe work right there and duct work behind that panel. I don't know if you can see that in there. So it looks like there's a big cavity, however, just under this section on the driver's side. So I'm gonna just go around there, pull that side apart and see if I can get it in under that side. Alrighty, this is the center console pulled apart. So I spent a bit of time trying to get the sides off. Worked out you can get the top section here off. It's actually quite simple when you look at it, but there's a big cavity underneath here, which is perfect to mount the little module in here. So I'm going to put the UHF mount in there, mount it into the bottom. I'll feed the aerial wire up underneath the dash and then underneath the console here, as well as a power wire, and then I'll be able to feed the wire for the hand piece up and around the top here. I'll probably run it out this side here. I'm either going to have a mount that sits on the side of the dash here, or one of those click-on mounts that goes around the vent there. So I'll be able to remove it when I don't need it, but that looks like it's the easiest way to do it without screwing holes in the car. I hate holes in dashes and I don't want anything like that in this car. Okay, so I've got a power run from the fuse block up into here, and also run the antenna cable. So I'm going to rip the plastic off, just chuck the handset in, and then start mounting this unit down in here, run the handset outside, and then when my little clip-on mount arrives, I'll be able to mount the handpiece up there and we're good to go. So that's the console and the interior all back together. UHF is in and working. We've got the cable coming out underneath there. Got a couple of mounts coming from the Cruiser store. That's going to hold the UHF handpiece up there. And I've got another little one coming from that side. That'll be for my quad lock for my phone. So that is the UHF install done on the 200 series. We've also got the ARB twin air compressor in here. How neat is that? Just tucked away in the panel using that big dead space outlet. Perfect. So we leave for Fraser Island in 3 days. We're going to go ahead today, chuck the tent on, get this car packed. We might even see you on Fraser. Cheers, guys. If you are interested in any of this gear that we've fitted to our 200 series today, jump on the Outback Equipment website. They got heaps of GME aerials. They got heaps of ARB gear like the compressor and the bits and pieces we've installed today. Or if you're looking for something as simple as the ClicOn dash mounts that we've used on our 200 series, jump on the Cruiser store. They have a heap of parts for your 200 series. Fantastic bit of gear, super easy, and you don't have to drill holes in your dash.